Hello, my lovely people. It's Friday fire time. And for some reason, it's been a rocky last 7 days, and people are freaking out completely. And a lot of people are losing hope, packing their bags. Again, it's like fourth or fifth time this year people have packed their bags. But I'm going to go through a whole bunch of data to try to figure out, should we be bearish or bullish based on data? As usual, and tons of other really fun numbers and calculations which will intrigue you. And things may not be as bad as they appear by no stretch. Let's get into it. And again, this is just data. You will not find any video around markets and crypto that we go so fast with so much data in such a short amount of time. A lot of people ask, what is KPM? Well, that's knowledge per minute. And that's what I impart. So let's get into it. Big thank you to mods in chat. Disclaimer, just a guy on the internet, definitely not financial advice. And a big thank you to Patreon too. This is Warden 1977. Cheers, buddy. We get an insane amount of KPM, knowledge per minute, and intel from Patreon. Let's go. I'm trying to go too fast. I'm tripping myself up. Let's look at sentiment and signals. And for years, I've been telling you, when there's extreme fear, what does that mean? Drop a comment below if you know the answer. But it's typically a good sign, okay? But we have the stock market. Actually, it's crypto market on the left, 22 extreme fear, and 24 for the stock market. So they're both in parallel, and people are freaking out. It's the same story over and over again. It's like, oh my God, I'm terrified. We're all going to die. Usual story. But let's get into the real story. We're going to start with Bitcoin. People like the new categorization, so I'm going to keep with them as well. So people know exactly what I'm talking about because I go fast. First of all, Rektober down 6.2%. We began up, and I now call it Rektober, because we didn't get a Rektober. We got an Uptember, and we're supposed to get an Uptober, and we have T minus, 13 days left in the month, and we're down 6%. But 6% is not catastrophic by any stretch. It's actually nothing for Bitcoin. It typically moves that in a day or in a few hours. And after last week, we saw a $23,000 candle in 6 hours. Wild. But let's look at volatility. Try to understand some of the data. This is from Econometrics. And you can see here, blue means very, very low volatility. Red means very, very high volatility. What do you notice over the past 3 years? Lots of blue compared to previous cycles. Nothing like previous cycles. Basically, the last, for 30 weeks, approximately 27 weeks, nothing but blue. Still no volatility. This is not like previous cycles. I want people to understand that. By no stretch, we've never had such a calm period in Bitcoin in the history of Bitcoin. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Let's look at ETF flows, because this is a big determinant of price. And yes, the ETF flows are still there. Yes, we sold off a little bit the last 2 days, but if you look at the month of October so far, again, 17 days in, was that like 12 trading days or less? The gains, the inflows into the ETFs are higher than September. And September was positive, $4.14 billion in so far in the month of October. And that is pretty good. Again, most of it is, of course, our friends at BlackRock buying all the gear. Now, a whole bunch of Bitcoin charts to really set the stage here and, let people know where we are. First of all, very high bear sentiment. This is down at 19.8, below the high bear sentiment level. Shout out to Axel for this great chart. So people are freaking out, and this is confluent with this fear and greed index. Yes, the bearish sentiment is out there. It's crazy. Bitcoin is down 6% in the month, and people are losing their minds. And again, it's Bitcoin. But I think the problem is they have false expectations. They expect to have $150,000 Bitcoin or $200,000 Bitcoin or even $250,000 Bitcoin. And it's below 110. And people are very sad. Very sad. Well, try traditional markets. We'll talk about those in a minute too. But on top of this bearish sentiment, the market is heavily skewed bearish too with put action. Again, very short across all, the majority of short, especially Whitebit, whatever the hell that is. nearly 70% short. This is weird in a bull market because normally the preponderance of action is always bullish. But the good thing that happens when most people are actually bearish, the majority are bearish, markets and the herd of sheep are invariably wrong. So, historically, if history repeats, I use this term a lot these days, when everybody is bearish, it actually can result in a short squeeze, resulting in the price going up. Because everybody is positioned for the price to go down. When it doesn't go down, you get that squeeze and the price shoots right up. Will we get that? I don't know. Am I prepared for it? Is there a probability it'll happen? Yes, if history repeats. But we don't know. Bear market could have started yesterday for all I know. We'll see. But let's look at some more data. The market is also extremely nervous. You see that in things like short-dated volatility. Bitcoin front-end options are now trading around 50 vol. Traders are paying up for protection. They want to buy that insurance. And that's all driven by the implied volatility. You see here too, everybody is betting buying insurance because they think the price is going to go down. They think we're all going to die. And also, this is a cool chart as well from Check on Chain. It shows you the amount of invested wealth at what price. 62% of US dollars invested were recently in Bitcoin were over $95,000. That's a big chunk. That's nearly 2/3 of all the latest investments. So what typically happens, think of this as a chart of determining the actual stop loss. When people invest in something and they expect big things, they expect $150,000 Bitcoin, and that doesn't come to fruition, but the price goes below what they paid for it, then what do? They stop out and move on to something else. This is why this $95,000 level is very, very important. But so is 35% of it above 110K. This is also important too. These people will lose patience unless the Bitcoin price goes above 110K again. We have to see the Bitcoin price right now. As we speak, let me check on it. 106,400 on the nose. So we are like 3,600 away from the 110K. Could easily hit that over the weekend. We shall see. We could also go down below 105K again, like we were this morning. And a little bit of good news, not so much bearish sentiment here, but the Bitcoin on exchanges continues to plummet. We saw some crazy drainage out of Binance over the last week. Everybody's upset with Binance, and correctly so. Everybody's pulling their Bitcoin and their Solana and everything else off Binance. Do not leave anything on a centralized exchange ever, because they will use it against you and they may lose it for you as well. Okay, if you don't want to do cold storage, buy a bloody ETF, but do not put it in the hands of players like Binance. Okay, off the soapbox. It's Friday, so I can be a little bit fiery. And 1 year illiquid supply is now just at exactly the 12 million Bitcoin mark. And again, illiquid supply fell by about 2% in Q3, and illiquid supply rose by 12%. And that means most long-term holders stayed put even as the price set a new all-time high. The long-term holders over the last quarter or so have not sold despite new all-time highs. I think, as I covered a couple of weeks ago, or even recently, more recent than that, was long-term holders have sold more than they typically sell in a bull run. So I think they're all pretty much done. And final little chart regarding support. Once again, another view from Crypto Quant. Shout out to Axel. This shows you the main support zone currently around that 106,000 to 107,000 range. Guess what the price is right now, ladies and gentlemen? 106,400. So we're right bang in the middle of that. 106.8, 106, give or take a couple $100, $1,000, doesn't really matter. This is the short-term holder, 1 month or 3 month realized price, and the SMA 200-day. We need to try stay above this zone. If we crash below it for a couple of days, we could test $100,000. And that's just a fact of life. And then below that again, you can see the yearly moving average of 365K as well. You could say it's been nearly a year and Bitcoin has kind of been flat, which is wild to think about. And that's why this time is definitely very, very different. Mad. Anyway, more good news regarding Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin to $1.5 million. Well, Ricardo Salinas says Bitcoin will 14x to 1.5 million to catch up with gold. And that got my attention. And then it will continue to outperform after that as well, not just catch up with gold. But gold hit a miraculous milestone yesterday of $30 trillion in market cap, by far the biggest asset on the planet in one discrete little bundle. Now, I look at this chart here and I look at the comparative market caps. Coal, gold, 30 trillion. And you got Bitcoin at 2.1 trillion. What would happen a lot for years? As long as I can remember, since 2017 or before, people said one day the market cap of Bitcoin would equate that of gold. Gold market cap just hit 30 trillion yesterday. What is the price of Bitcoin if that happens? The answer is 1.53 million. And ta-da, 1.5 million, very close to what Ricardo said, and he's dead right. So the question is, will we go to 1.5 million? The answer is yes, we're going to go to 1 million, barring any unforeseen circumstances. What could happen in the future? Who knows? But either way, very bullish. Remember, the more gold goes up, the more of a harbinger it is of things to come for us in the Bitcoin space. Let's talk about crypto real quick, see what's going on in the crypto world. First of all, Toli is poking fun at Ethereum. Ethereum is now officially a Solana L2, since wrapped Solana on Ethereum needs censorship-resistant guarantees to exit it back to Solana. Therefore, he construes that it is a layer 2. It's kind of funny to see, because Uniswap is now running on Solana. You can see here it's now live on Solana. So now you can do an awful lot more. And this is great because the more cross-chain stuff you have, and if you have the best, cheapest, fastest solution, you're going to bring in more stuff to your chain. So this is a net positive for both Uniswap and, of course, for Solana. Uniswap was a pain in the butt to deal with in the past, but maybe it might be worth trying again. Maybe I'll give it a shot. And BSOL from Bitwise reaches $100 million, and this is their Bitwise Solana staking ETP, which I think is based out of Europe somewhere. So it's just the money keeps flowing into these things. So the European ETPs, which are like their ETFs, they are front running the American ETFs that are apparently coming real soon. This one's flying all around the internet. That 21 shares has been approved by the SEC. Now remember, the US government is closed, but they still have a skeleton crew operating. I couldn't vet this with the SEC, but either way, it looks like it is approved, and we'll see if we hear anything after close of market today or next week, if that is the case. And that'll be the first of many, first of 11 more to come into play. And Solana, this is also big news for Solana. The CME volumes is insane. A ton of money is being placed on these in anticipation of these SOL ETFs. So it's just a matter of time, and the global demand for it is through the roof too, because they can't get the American ETFs yet. They're playing the futures through CME as well. And a DeFi Dev Corporation just broke 2.2 million SOL. They just bought another 86,307. Nice job getting the dip. By the way, the amount that they paid for it was actually quite low. So interesting little strategy there. I will be updating the HODL model soon. I'll share it on Patreon later today. Now we're going to talk about the debasement trade, because that is the elephant in the room. If you're in hard assets, which we stress here very much on the channel all the time, it's big. Now, over the last week, wild, the delta in price appreciation between gold and Bitcoin is 20%, which means Bitcoin or gold outperformed Bitcoin. Bitcoin went down, gold went to the moon. But we're going to look at some interesting data right now regarding these two assets, because everybody now thinks, because gold is having its day in the sun, should everybody just pivot out of Bitcoin into gold? That's the big question that I hear. Let's look at some data. Let's look at this DCA Showdown and calculate some CAGRs, because you know I love compound annual growth rates. Over the last 8 years, we're going back to 2018. If you invested $50 DCA a week, no DCAS, just regular DCA, into Bitcoin and gold, that would be $19,200 invested. If you invested in gold, $50 a week, you'd have $35K. If you invested into Bitcoin, you'd have $142,000. The yellow is the gold. The cash is the green, which of course is debased by about 14% per year, give or take. And Bitcoin would be a nice little bag. Your $19,200 becomes $142,000, which is big. But I wanted to see what the delta is. And you know, my hurdle rate for investing is about 14%. If you're not making 14% from your bag per year, it's not good enough. But what would the CAGR be? Again, 19K goes to 32K or 35K on gold, and it goes to 142K on Bitcoin. Well, the CAGRs are as follows, my friends. Gold, 6.72% CAGR over the last 8 years, and Bitcoin, 27.16% CAGR. I do want to point something out, though, because Bitcoin had a bear market in 2018. So it's probably not exactly a fair year to start the clock. If you started it in maybe 2019, it would have been a lot better in terms of CAGR. But that doesn't matter. It's the same measuring stick. But 6.72% for gold over the last 8 years versus 27.16 CAGR. And remember, once your CAGR starts going above 10%, the difference between a 10% CAGR and a 12% CAGR is huge over a multi-year period. Difference between a 10% CAGR and a 20% CAGR is monstrous. And even every little percentage counts. But if you're only making 6.72% on your money, compound annual growth rate, over 8 years, you are not going to make it. You are drowning. So be careful if you're thinking of pivoting from Bitcoin into gold. Not a good idea. Now, speaking of gold one more time, because we are talking about the debasement trade, this is fiat valued in gold, and it always goes to zero. So if the only thing you can buy is gold, you're better off having that than fiat, that's for sure. But again, 6.72% isn't going to save your life. And the question is, the big question on everybody's mind, this is from Google Trends. What's next? So you can see the search, Google search for gold has been through the roof. Blue, it's at 100%, all-time high. Everybody is looking for gold. Yellow is silver. It's spiking up, heading to 50%. And the interest in Bitcoin is non-existent. The question is, will it follow gold and silver? Historically, it does. So we'll watch this space very carefully. And another fun news too, the American dream. The American dream, by the way, is the ability to own your own castle, something I do stress here on the channel. Even though it does cost money to maintain and everything else, it does go up in value over time. And it's a safe place. And it's nice to own something and not have to rent from somebody else. Anyhow, the American dream since 2020, not 2018, 2020, U.S. home prices measured for the Case-Shiller Home Index, which I run on TradingView all the time, and has soared more than 50% in US dollar terms. But priced in Bitcoin, it's fallen by 90.02%. So if you had a house in dollars, it's gone up 52% since 2020, but in Bitcoin terms, it's down 90%. So if you had $1 million to invest at the beginning of 2020, yes, you would have made more return in Bitcoin. But again, you don't have to have all your assets in Bitcoin. If you have any extra, buy a castle when the mortgage rates come down. And let's look at one other thing. Gold rips to $4,300. This chart has been nothing short of amazing. But there is a couple of little signs I do want to stress. And this is kind of like maybe some people construe it as a top signal. You have lines down the street. This one was 1,000 meters long in Sydney, Australia. People queuing up to buy gold from a bullion dealer. And in New York City, queues down the road for people to buy gold. Typically, when retail comes in after a big spike in price, they buy the top, unless you watch this channel. Is it a top signal? If history repeats, yes. And we're also seeing a little bit of a positive move here. Despite Bitcoin being beaten down, if you look at that little big green arrow, points to the actual pair chart going up. This is gold over Bitcoin. And yes, it's been a mixed bag, but we'll see exactly what's going to happen next. Could it, where's it going to go? We'll see. We'll see. Now, let's talk about markets for a second. Let's look at the stock market over the last week. It has been mixed. Nvidia down 5.4%, Microsoft down, Apple down, Google up nearly 5%, Tesla up 0.57%, Amazon down 5.87%, Broadcom up fractionally as well. So Oracle down 3%, Meta down 2%, all across the board, pretty much down, but two or three things that actually made it for the week. But I do want to talk about this. I have a top 200 list, which includes pairs and everything else, so I can quickly sort out what's moving in the market and what's not to get a temperature for the room. And if we look at it just today, interesting, for the first time in quite some time, guess what's topping the list? It's MSTX, MSTU, MicroStrategy over IBIT, MicroStrategy over Bitcoin, and Tesla over Bitcoin. They are the top kind of pairs that I like to think about and look at. And again, I'm just sorting by change percentage for the day. MicroStrategy up 2.7% on a pretty red day across the board, and Tesla up over $10, 2.38%. Baba's in there too, Palo Alto Networks, Coinbase, DeFi Dev made it too. NVIDIA, again, it's always interesting when all of the things that you hold actually do better than the rest of the other stuff. I mean, the stuff in here like GameStop and Intel and you name it, everything's in there too. Let's talk about MicroStrategy for a second. What's going on? What's going on with MicroStrategy? Well, I like to look at my NAV premiums, and exactly a week ago, I shared last Friday the NAV premium for MicroStrategy was 1.173864984. Today, the NAV premium is 1.22187. So it's a 5% swing in just a week. And they did buy another 200 Bitcoin on Monday. And when you look at this chart too, the Bitcoin price exactly last Friday was 117,000. Now it's 106,000. Big swing, but NAV premium goes up. If that maintains and Bitcoin price returns, you expect some money to come back into MicroStrategy as well. Now, regional banks, it was a very red day yesterday because people are freaking out. What exactly happened? This is from Tyler Durden. Markets were absolutely nuts because the spread between the secured overnight financing rate and the federal funds rate blew out. And this is basically stoked fears of a liquidity crunch. Regional lenders slid because the fallout from things like Tricolor's lax auto loans. And by the way, I've been warning for ages about the auto loan business, the what's it called, second tier credit. Everybody's defaulting on their loans right now. They can't afford their very high car payments. They can't afford their credit card bills. It's really bad out there. And that's beginning at last to trickle through and hit the financial institutions and the lending facilities and the regional banks. And that's the big problem here. And as a result of that, I think JP Morgan had to write off a bunch of stuff. Gold shot up to 43.31, and the whole thing was nuts. Bitcoin went down. But the point is, there is a liquidity crisis, which means the Fed has to step in. And the Fed will cut rates in 12 days. That's guaranteed. It's 99% guaranteed. So we're going to get another rate cut, which would be good for things like Tesla. Now, Tesla, despite people thought there'd be a cliff after the EV credits expiring. No, not at all. In fact, the Tesla Model Y is now sold out in China until December. Gone, off the shelf. And Tesla also, in a sign of extreme confidence in their FSD, they launched MadMax Edition. Shout out to Omar, Omar's catalog. He said, holy poop. Just look at Tesla 14.12 MadMax mode. Go. I've never seen a self-driving car drive like this. And then at the end of the gate of the parking lot was closed, so it parked on the side street. Amazing. But I think Sawyer Merritt drove MadMax mode. Some other guy, I think Dirty Tesla, drove it in LA and rush hour traffic. And Sawyer Merritt drove it in a parking lot. And who was doing MadMax mode in a parking lot. And remember, the most dangerous places to ever drive are parking lots, whether they're structures or shopping centers or whatever. They are lethal. That's when people make mistakes. So be very careful. But the reason I'm sharing this is Tesla just turned it on. They're making the car drive crazy at extreme speeds and maneuvers as a sign of their confidence in the quality of the software, better than human. So it's weird. Anyway, a little bit of macro news real quick. This one is an interesting chart too, because we go back to fear and greed to try to figure out what's happening. And it is a Bitcoin chart with fear and greed. But if you look back historically, every time we got extreme fear, what happened next? Yes, the price goes up. Boom. With very few exceptions, price goes up. And will it happen again? It's historically a very, very good bottom signal. Unless, of course, we're pivoting into a bear market, then we'll see. And another crazy news, we spoke about the Fed and the regional banking crisis too. Well, shout out to I think it was Luke Roman. Sorry, I forgot his name for a second. But this is a chart. Basically, it talks about the Federal Reserve. They always spoke about doing QT, quantitative tightening, for years, but which means basically letting bonds expire to pull the money out and fight inflation. But Luke Groman points out the twist. Since 2022, the Fed has cut short-term bonds sharply, but did not touch the long-term ones. So yes, effectively, there was no quantitative tightening because the blue went down. Yes, they cut the short-term bonds, but they grew the long-term bonds. So plot twist, QT didn't actually happen. And now the Fed is talking about firing up the money printers. Can you imagine what's going to happen next? It's going to be wild. So again, we'll see what happens. Rates are coming down. Money printers are firing up. There was never any QT to begin with. And now they're going to add even more. It's going to get bonkers. Perhaps. We'll see. And meme du jour, this is funny. Gold at $4,000. A huge line down the street. And Bitcoin at 108. Nobody's interested. Always the same story. Thank you all for coming. I want to thank everybody for being here. Sean D, T&D Tesla, you guys rock, KH and everybody else. And we got BD McGee, Nick M up there in Canada, Buckhorn, James Voshizang, how are you? New Zealand, Kiwis are up. Yunka, Zeno, Dutch Joe, Psych Experience, Andy, Piper, again up in Canada. Swiper to Swiping, GQ Trader, AZ Rolfa, Moto 89, long-term holder, Mr. Mike, Guinness time tonight, and DCA Broccoli. Thank you all for coming, my friends. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.